Let's take a look at laboratory training and T groups. Organizational development can be traced back to training laboratory efforts that began in 1946 in Bethel, Maine. A German immigrant, Lewin, was a social psychologist at the University of Iowa. Lewin's work was an effort to understand and create personal and social change with the objective of building and growing democracy in society. In 1945, Lewin established a research center for group dynamics. The Connecticut International Commission asked Lewin to develop a workshop for community leaders in association with the Commission on Community Interrelations of the American Jewish Congress. The objective of the workshop was to assist community leaders in developing solutions to problems they faced in their communities, specifically in the implementation of the Fair Employment Practices Act. The researchers observed and interpreted the participants' actions during the day and discussed their findings in the evenings while the participants listened. This exchange led to a promising new pattern in which researchers reported on their observations and the participants listened, reflected, and shared their own interpretations of their own behavior. The training group, or T group, was born. In open and honest sessions in which authenticity and forthright communication were prized, group members spent time analyzing their own and others' contributions as well as the group's process. The common objective of each T group was to create interpersonal change by allowing individuals to learn about their own and others' behavior, so that this could be translated into more effective behavior when they returned home. As the word spread about effectiveness of T group laboratory method, managers and leaders began to attend and learn how to increase effectiveness in their own organizations. Lewin's research had a significant influence on OD in leadership and management research. Though it's no longer representative of mainstream OD practice, we see the roots of this method today in team-building intervention. Lewin also influenced another tradition in the history of organizational development: action research and survey feedback. The Survey Research Center's goal is to create a hub for social science research, specifically with survey research expertise. The center aimed to focus on larger projects of significant importance beyond a single organization and to share its results publicly. One such project that met these criteria was a survey feedback project at Detroit Edison. From 1948 to 1950, the survey of 8,000 employees and managers was administered to understand perceptions, opinions, and attitudes about a variety of aspects of the company, such as career progression and the work environment. The researchers sought to understand not only how employees at Detroit Edison felt about the organization, but also how the results of this project could be used to understand, instigate, and lead change in other organizations. Some of the objectives include developing an understanding of the problems to improve relationships, identifying factors that affected the extent of the change, and developing working hypotheses for later. Following the initial data collection, feedback was given to leaders and organizational members about survey results. At each level, the data relevant to that specific group was discussed. The researchers observed that this series of feedback meetings had a very positive influence on initiating and leading change in the organization, but they had been unable to substantiate this observation with data. In 1950, that changed with a second study conducted at the same 8 departments as the first survey. In 4 departments, managers developed action planning programs that differed significantly from one another. Almost 2 years after the programs were initiated, a third survey was conducted in 1952 to compare the data for groups that had taken significant action and those who had taken no action. The researchers found that among the groups that had taken actions, employees reported a positive change in perceptions about their jobs, their supervisors, and the work environment compared to groups that had taken no action. The change was even stronger in groups that involved all levels of employees in the action planning process. Action research is the underlying philosophy of the majority of OD work, particularly survey feedback. Socio-technical systems, STS, was developed in the 1950s, driven by the action research philosophy. The concept of social technical systems is generally traced to a study of social and psychological changes in work groups that occurred during a transition to a more mechanized versus manual methods of extracting coal. The technological system consists of not just information technology as we might think of it today, but the skills, knowledge, procedures, and tools that employees use to do their jobs. The social system consists of the relationships between coworkers, supervisors, communication and information flow, values, attitudes, and motivation. An important principle of STS is that of joint optimization, which explains that an organization will function optimally only if the social and technological systems are designed to fit the demands of each other and the environment. One method by which joint optimization can be achieved is through autonomous work groups, where members have some degree of ownership and control and responsibility for the tasks that need to be performed. To jointly optimize both the social and technical systems of the organization requires an understanding of several factors. The social processes that occur in organizations and the variety of theories and methods that exist to make them more efficient in terms of human resources. The technological processes used by the organization and the constraints that it places on the design and operations of the social system. The theory of open systems, because no two organizations are exactly alike or faced with the same environmental demand. And the mechanics of change, both in the exclusion of the initial socio-technical system design and in provision of the continual adaptation of the organization to new environmental demands. Once a thorough diagnostic stage is completed, the practitioner must propose interventions that could include restructuring of work methods, rearrangements of technology, or the redesign of organizational social structures. Socio-technical systems theory and practices are followed today by OD practitioners. Several research programs in the 1960s prompted researchers to adopt different management practices. The aim of these research programs was to offer alternative ways of managing in contrast to the dominant methods of the time. Because humans inherently dislike work, most people must be concerned, controlled, directed, threatened with punishment to get them to put forth adequate effort towards the achievement of organizational objectives. Under Theory Y, people will exercise self-direction and self-control in the service of objectives to which they're committed. Commitment to objectives is a function of the rewards associated with their achievement. Researchers concluded that adopting the beliefs of Theory Y was necessary to bring about innovative advances in products, technologies, and solutions to existing problems. They recommended several ways to put Theory Y assumptions into practice, including documenting job descriptions, restructuring the performance appraisal process, and more effectively managing salary increases and promotions. Another study asked managers to think of the most productive and least productive divisions in their organization and to place them on a continuum reflecting their management practices labeled as Systems 1 through 4. Managers use fear, threats, and intimidation to coerce employees to act. Decisions are made at the top of the organization, and no teamwork is present in explorative management. Benevolent, authoritative managers occasionally use rewards, but also punishment. Most decisions are made at the highest levels, but some decision-making with a narrow set of guidelines is made at lower levels. In consultative management, managers use reward and occasional punishment. Many decisions are made at the top, but are left for open decision-making at lower levels. Teamwork is frequently present. Participative managers involve groups in setting and measuring goals. Decision-making is done throughout the organization and is characterized by involvement and participation. The most productive departments were run using a participative group management style, and that the least productive departments were led by managers who modeled an explorative, authoritarian style. In another study, researchers noticed that management practices could be plotted on a chart where the manager demonstrated a degree of concern for production and a concern for people. Each of these could be mapped on a grid with a score from 1 low to 9 high. A high concern for production, but a low concern for people was referred to as a 9-1 style, and so on. As a result of the studies, researchers advocated for a 9-9 approach to management in which managers demonstrate both a high concern for production and a high concern for people. They noted that the 9-9 style creates a healthier environment because people can work together when there's trust and mutual support. Scholars began to rethink commonly held assumptions about management and human behavior. The field of OD evolved as organizations began to increasingly adopt new management styles. This development appeared to be more strongly embraced in the late 1970s and 1980s when industry firms realized a growing competitive threat to U.S. manufacturing industry as a result of developments in Japan. As firms realized that the quality of the product strongly impacted productivity, profitability, and competitiveness of the organization, they began to pay attention to management styles that would increase workers' ability and motivation to improve quality. As a result, they began to involve employees in noticing defects and taking action to prevent them or to correct them. Japanese manufacturing firms created the quality circle in the 1950s and 1960s as a method to involve employees in improving quality in their organizations. The assumption is that typically employees understand the work of their immediate area best and can make suggestions to upper management for areas of improvement. Quality circles are part of a family of approaches known as employee involvement practices. Employee involvement generally describes any attempt to include workers in order to develop greater commitment, productivity, and quality by granting them decision-making authority and providing incentives. Quality programs such as these, while not always characterized as OD programs, are important to the OD practitioner as they almost always involve some degree of personal and organization cultural change. Today, we see evidence of this trend in OD through the pervasive use of self-managed work teams that are given control and ownership of their work as well as how the team functions and is managed. OD focused on solving internal problems in the organization, centered on change first and foremost at the individual level. A 1980s Businessweek article brought the concept of corporate culture into popular vocabulary of managers. It highlighted the idea that a company's strategy and culture must be in alignment for the organization to succeed, directly linking corporate results with organizational culture. Culture has been defined in various ways, but most agree that a shorthand definition of culture is the shared attitudes, values, beliefs, and customs of members of a social unit or organization. Culture consists of symbols and the shared rules and norms that comprise a collective mindset within an organization. These cultural patterns become easier to identify and read the longer the time spent with the organization. Cultures perpetuate themselves through socialization, particularly when new managers to the culture are reprimanded for violating cultural norms or rewarded for assimilation. The common sense cultural perspective as a lens on organizational life began to dominate practitioner and academic literature as managers and consultants became interested in strategies to intervene in and change organizational culture. Organizational cultures also exist within local or national cultures that have their own influences on the behaviors of organization members. Culture may be a useful concept as a lens on what's happening, but it's not the only explanation. Symbolic and cultural observations about an organization remain a powerful source of data. In the 1980s, academic research and practice increasingly began to adopt the language of strategic change. Practitioners noticed that the best organizational strategy would make little difference unless it was implemented effectively. The ability to effectively adopt change became the difference between successful and mediocre organizations. Not only do organizations need to focus attention on such external issues as market conditions, customer needs, competitive positioning, and financial concerns, they must also manage change internally. When a corporation must shift its strategy to better position itself competitively, the change required is both external and internal, as employees must be informed, involved, and motivated to help make the shift. The field of OD differs from the field of strategic planning in terms of the ability to address the human and personal aspects of organizational change, while a focus on strategy requires OD practitioners to better understand the business. Practitioners connected the organization's vision and goals to social, political, technological, and cultural elements to ensure consistency, remove barriers, and involve multiple levels of the organization. This has required OD practitioners to understand the environments and its challenges to the organization. Personal learning and development has been a theme of organizational development work since the 1940s. Organizational learning is defined as the detection and correction of error, which many people erroneously define as problem solving. Many organizations fail to think systematically about problems. Learning could occur more quickly if individuals and organizations were to build capacity in the following 5 areas. The ability to see the organization as a system, to see how parts interrelate and affect one another, and to see how structures and systems influence behavior. The choice to engage in and commit to a personal vision, goals, and development. Learning to recognize the unarticulated ideas and ideologies that comprise our worldviews and color our interpretation. The leadership ability and responsibility to rally organization members around a single vision that motivates action. The ability to engage in a dialogue among team members so that the team can recognize patterns that hinder their productivity. As the concept of organizational learning became more well-known and adopted among OD practitioners, several techniques were developed to promote organizational learning. One of the most commonly used has been a learning history, in which organizational members discuss and document problems, choices, solutions, and thinking in a narrative document. The concept of organizational learning gained a following in OD because its primary concern, growth and development of individuals and teams, resonated strongly with the founding rationale and values of the field. Organizational learning has now become both an evaluation mechanism of OD effectiveness and an intervention itself. Many practitioners are directing their attention towards conceiving of OD as organizational effectiveness. In some particular circles, organizational effectiveness is supplanting organizational development as a preferred term. The term organizational effectiveness is not a new one. Academic researchers have been working to define the characteristics, precursors, and determinants of OE for many years. OE often concentrates on quantitative and objective measures on outcomes of what constitutes an effective organization. Employee engagement is a second term that's been widely accepted by managers and OD practitioners. The term refers to individuals' involvement and satisfaction with, as well as enthusiasm for, work. Literature on an individual's job satisfaction, productivity, and motivation is substantial. Some see engagement as a broader concept, however, suggesting that employees who know what's expected of them, who form strong relationships at work, or who in other ways experience meaning in their work are engaged. Today, the Gallup organization conducts a widely used employee engagement survey called the Q12. Today, there's a great interest in the field of organizational development to improve organizational agility and collaboration. Driven by rapid changes in technology, new competitive environments, and business strategy trends, organizations have sought to improve agility. Agility captures an organization's ability to develop and quickly apply flexible, mutable, dynamic capacities. It's also the capability to make timely, effective, and sustained organizational change. More importantly, agility is an organizational design capability that can sense the need for change from both internal and external sources, carry out those changes routinely, and sustain above-average performance. Flexible, an agile organization pivots as needed to take advantage of opportunities as they sense them. Focused. Being fast and flexible is a recipe for whiplash and chaos unless the organization is also focused. Alongside the great interest in organizational agility has been an increasing capability of employees to collaborate with colleagues around the world. OD practitioners increasingly focus on enlisting a wide range of stakeholders throughout the organization to build the organization's capacity for responsive and adaptive change. Threads of OD's history remain in contemporary practice.